Well, so I think that there might be a need for regulation, but I think you first have to figure out what it is we're actually targeting. And you want to make sure that what you're doing is you're building for the future, not trying to enshrine the past. And so that Zuckerberg quote is actually a very good encapsulation of how blitzscaling changes, because you start with move fast and break things, and then you move to move fast with stable infrastructure, both of which is what the phrase at Facebook and the value shifted to, both of which are emphasizing speed, scale, and innovation, but they're changing how it is you take risks, which risks you take.
Is the danger, though, at least for the Valley, which historically has been an unregulated Wild West in the best sense of the word, is the danger that because perhaps of some of the behavior or incidents that there will be regulation and it won't just apply to the big guys, it'll apply to everybody, and therefore it's going to make it a lot
Well, there's a
more
lot of different dangers to bad regulation. There is you could sacrifice the future of the tech industry. It could be something that no longer is an American specialty and is more handed to the rest of the world. You could restrict startups versus existing companies. There's all these all these risks that are really serious.
But are those risks being tempted by the behavior that you're talking about in the book?
Well, to some degree, yes, just because what happens is you get big fast, you've taken some risks. With risks, there will be some footfalls. The chapter that we have on responsible blitzscaling in the book is to say, understand that when you're small, and as long as you're not taking big risks with customers, you can take broader range of risks. As you get bigger, narrow and focus and try to maintain those, contain those risks, and make sure there aren't things that are particularly bad. And I think that's one of the things that we're learning right now. So I think it's a risk factor. By the way, it's not just a risk factor to the companies; it's a risk factor to all of us with the tech industry for the future.
You spend your time trying to find great entrepreneurs, and you have found a number of them along the way. When you look at the traits, though, of the most shoot-the-moon style entrepreneurs, I'm thinking of Elon Musk talking about shooting the moon, is there something about them that lends themselves to not just being visionaries, but people who, by default, need to break the rules?
Well, I don't actually look at it as breaking the rules. I look at it as trying to redefine the rules. And as opposed to saying, hey, let's have decades of committee process trying to argue a different rule, let's try to demonstrate how if we change the rules, the world would be a better place. Now, you still have to be controlled about which risks you're taking, what damage society may do. But I actually don't look at it as rule breaking. I look at it as a proposal for rule changing.
But I think I can think of instances where you're thinking of that, like with Airbnb challenging state industries, with Uber challenging state industries, with Elon Musk just coming up with brand new ways of thinking of things. But there's the other side of that, too. And I know you know Elon well from your days at PayPal. But what he's run into recently has been more than just foot fault. It's been unforced errors that he's run into all over the place.
And I do think that look, I think it's classic for the people who say, look, we're going to try to create something from nothing. We're going to try to do this big thing that hasn't been done before. I have a willingness to take risks, and so I will learn, oops, that risk I shouldn't take. I think we're in a process of seeing, both with Elon and other folks, like, oh yeah, we shouldn't do that kind of tweet. That's not actually, in fact, constructive.
I thought he learned that lesson until he just tweeted last week about
what do you think? You know him well. What do you think is going
enrichment commission
with him?
Well, so I think what he's focused on is saying, look, I am trying to build something that 3, 5, 10 years in the future, and I don't want to be like kind of like, oh, well, what does this month look like or this quarter look like? And so he's interpreting it that way. And look, part of his grit, part of his determination to get to that long future is to push back against these obstacles. I just think it needs to be a different pattern than those tweets.
I loved changing gears completely to politics, and because Andrew and I are here together every day. I loved reading about your discussions with Peter Thiel, which I thought was classic. And I immediately thought, because you're saying President Trump lies, and then Peter Thiel says, well, Obama lied, and he lied about these things, and Trump lies about...
You could host the show with Peter here every morning.
But you missed... Did you see the debate back here where Cuomo was with Cynthia Nixon? Well, Cynthia Nixon's... he said to her, or she said to him, you got to stop lying. And he said back to her, I'll stop lying when you do. Which is that not the greatest answer for a debate to come up? Anyway, this is the same kind of discussions that we have here, and you're still friends with Peter,
very
right?
Much.
Very, very close.
See?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And we're still friends too.
It's a little microcosm of.
But do you think there's an issue about political leanings in the Valley? And do you think that is
There
going to
is,
ultimately
right?
harm the industry?
So I think that there are political leanings in any industry, any region, et cetera. So it's not like everything is a perfect microcosm. And I think that the Valley has this, like, we want to build and construct the future. And that does tend you to a certain kind of political leaning. Now, that being said, like, just as I have a political leaning doesn't mean I'm unreasonable, doesn't mean that I reject counterpoints of view. This is one of the reasons why I really value my relationship with Peter. We argue and we learn from each other all the time. And so I think that the fact that the Valley has this kind of future-oriented slant, like, for example, very pro, let's do something about climate. Right. And people say, that's political. It's like, no, I just think that's scientific.